Now, looking at the COVID-19 stats, as of mid-October of this year, we have diagnosed around 738,000 cases. New cases were 104. We're going down with that, thankfully. We have the total death toll of 2,001, around 100. Recoveries 730,000 approximately, and we still have a total active cases of around 4,000. The graph here shows that there was a surge back in February, but we're declining, thankfully. So this is where we stand right now. Thankfully, I think, and this could be attributed to the fact that there is more than 20 million COVID-19 vaccines which were administered since the emergence of. So as frontliners, we had several measures that we had to take. So radiographers, at the beginning of the surge, the radiographers have been divided into different teams. So we had, if you will, clusters or bubbles. Some were assigned to deal with positive cases. Others were assigned to deal with suspected cases, and also others were dealing with non-suspected normal patients. And this was, taken into consideration factors like existing medical conditions, compromised immunity in some cases. I mean, we're not referring to severe ones, but things like, for example, asthmatic radiographers were assigned to non-suspected normal patients. So this is how we sort of tried to bubble the work. Many radiographers were reassigned from their major routine work, specialized radiographers like mammographers or MRI technologists or ultrasound technologists were, reshuffled to support the increasing load in the general and the mobile X-ray work. Some radiographers had also to be reshuffled across the clinical sites, the hospitals and the clinics, so we can address the surge of the demand on the chest X-rays and CT chests. Radiographers were also requested to, of course, stay longer hours, and I think this is a global thing that had to take place, but it was stressful in terms of the increased workload on many of those radiographers. We also looked into, expediting the new graduate radiographers' appointment. And so immediately those, students or graduates, freshly graduates, were introduced to a short orientation immediately to perform mobile X-rays, especially in the field hospitals, that those came in handy. We also talked about building a volunteering capacity in one of the publications that will be out shortly. On the social level, of course, radiographers, as any other profession and frontliners back then and even now, we're not gathering for any meetings, eating, together. Group activities were strictly forbidden. Now we're having some limited, access to such activities. Also, different pathways were assigned within the department for each radiographer to follow the path as per his patient status. So we kept, if you will, track of the footprint, to make sure that we are trying to contain the situation. Radiographers who contracted the coronavirus mostly recovered, thankfully, but some had to endure severe symptoms. Now, the aftermath of COVID-19 basically goes, based on the reflections of what we have experienced as frontliners, radiology departments were relatively top on of the performance indicators in responding to the pandemic. I mean, we did well. Radiographer rotations on different modalities is the way forward to maximize the work force capacity in catastrophes and pandemics. So we need to look into more liquidy skills, if you will. Automation of workflows and application of artificial intelligence are potentially crucial for the future radiology practice. We've seen a lot of research reported successful application of artificial intelligence and during the pandemic. There's also a severe lack of trained or verified volunteers, and again, I'm referring back to the paper that we have produced to look into that and find a solution. We are good at what we do technically, but are we as good as we should be emotionally and psychologically? This is, again, I think this is something that we need to touch base on and explore, because this wasn't, if you will, conventional. And so we really need to look into that. Issues to be addressed in relation to professional practice and recognition in our places also should be addressed. Did we recognize those first liners enough? And for us, yes, they were recognized, but globally, I haven't seen a lot of if you will, specifically radiographers recognition. So, for example, we've seen doctors, we've seen nurses being recognized, but radiographers per se, I haven't. So the way forward, as the Radiographer Society of Emirates thinks, is we need to focus on social, emotional well-being and mental health issues. We need to support this as part of our professional practice. Training and verifying volunteering capacity is highly recommended. We're working on a project, hopefully on alternative digital credentials or micro-credentials and digital badges. Continuing education that is affordable and free sometimes should be a part of our mission, and this did help back then in the COVID-19 era. We did have 2 separate events that were totally free of charge. And getting prepared for the unknown. I think preemptiveness, if this is even a word, is key here. We need to be preemptive and plan for catastrophes and things like pandemics. I will conclude now by this last slide. Look at that. This is salaryexplorer.com, and it talks about radiographers' salaries. This is not a radiographer, it's a lab tech. And just to add to my point, we need to have media exposure that is relevant to radiographers. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you, Samar, for your comprehensive talk and share about your experience during the COVID pandemic in the United Arab Emirates. We will get back to you during the Q&A session. The next speaker, we are very happy to have our member society from Palestine. And the speaker from the Palestinian Society is the Vice President of the society, Mr. Mohammed Abdelghani. Mr. Abdelghani, is now your time.
Hi, this is Mohammed Abdelghani, representing the Palestinian Association of Medical Radiation Technologists, PAMR. Gentlemen and colleagues, good evening. Today I will share with you the reality and the situation of medical imaging profession in Palestine during the pandemic. First of all, I would like to talk about my country, Palestine. In Arabic, it is Palestine. It is a geographic area in the Western Asia, west to Jordan, south to Lebanon, and north to Egypt. The capital is Jerusalem. Population, it is estimated in 2020 about 6,300,000. They are living inside Palestine, and 5.7 million refugees. They are living in camps in the neighboring countries due to the war 1948 and 1967. Regarding the education in Palestine, we have 4 Palestinian universities who are offering radiography bachelor's degree and ultrasound program training, and 2 of them offering master degree in radiography sciences and CT and MRI. The Palestinian universities have approximately graduated 1,250 radiographers, the vast majority holding bachelor's degree. We have 100 have master's degree and 17 have a doctorate degree. Here, the distribution of the radiographers' jobs in Palestine. We have 2 sectors, the government sector and the private sector. In the government sector, we have 665 radiographers working in the government sector, and we have 435 radiographers are working in the private sector. Moreover, here the medical imaging modalities distribution in Palestine. We have lithotripsy, CT scan, MRI, nuclear medicine, mammography, cath lab, fluoroscopy, plain X-ray, portable X-ray, and dental radiography. As for our society, which is the regulated body of the radiographers in Palestine, BAMRT was established in 1997. We have decrease on the unemployment rate. Now it is 12% overall radiographers in Palestine in 2021. It was 35% in the year 2020. This decrease in the percentage of unemployment due to the high demand of radiographers during the pandemic. When we talk about COVID-19, let's talk about the history of the pandemic in Palestine. On the 7th of March 2020, the first infected patient diagnosed with COVID-19 in Bethlehem city, the homeland, the city of the Jesus here in Palestine. The contamination happened by contact with tourists. The local authorities have reserved a hotel to isolate the infected patients since they had stable health conditions. And there was still no available isolation hospital to hospitalize them. Later on, Ministry of Health have rounded a medical center to end isolation hospital in the same city. The second diagnosed case of infected COVID-19 was in Tulkarem city. It's my city. At the same week, really, the Palestinian Ministry of Health had evacuated the Red Crescent Hospital in the city from the patients and transferred them to a government hospital. The Palestinian Red Crescent Hospital in Tulkarem city is equipped to receive patients with COVID-19. Later periods, all Palestinian cities were alarmed as infected cities, areas with COVID-19. At that time, we have 3 central isolation hospitals: Tulkarem, Turmus Aya, Ramallah, in Hebron, and in Jericho. This is the summary of COVID-19 status in Palestine now. We have total cases about 449,982 infected cases, and we have death cases about 4,604 deaths. This was the first case. I made an X-ray for him, infected with COVID-19. He admitted into Karim City in Red Crescent Hospital. I am prepared myself to enter and make an X-ray to the patient. This is also the isolation area, isolation zone in the Red Crescent hospitals. All the rooms are full of patients. All of them are infected with COVID-19. We have the main two modalities we used during the pandemic. The vast majority was portable X-ray. The second modality was CT scan. Not all not all hospitals have a CT scan during the pandemic, but all hospitals have just or the vast majority have portable X-ray. Some of the hospitals have CT, not all of them. We have many obstacles during the process of patient imaging with COVID-19. The first one was because of the need to use two types of protective materials, protection against radiation and protection against infection. This constitutes an additional weight that hinders movement, as the lead pipes are often not designed to be worn under the protection of infection protection. So we will have to find slightly shorter sizes, a new design to suit the current situation. And the second one was the fog accumulated on the face mask. It caused by steam from breathing, which hinders movement to a certain extent. Even a small amount of fogging will cause mild confusion of vision. The third one was the packaging of the mobile radiography device somewhat affects movement of the mobile X-ray machine and somewhat affects the clarity of the light used to determine the imaging area. We have also a problem in that comes from the shortage of radiologists around the country. As many countries in the world, there was shortage in the radiologists. This makes the situation more difficult. We have internet connection or interconnection between the hospital or inside the hospitals that are newly equipped for the COVID-19. So there was no back system, there was no HI system. This was a big obstacle. We used we used WhatsApp and email to send the chest X-ray or X-ray exam to the medical team to have a look. It was difficult to do that because some of the resolution of the images or the radiographs were lost during to the compression of the images. So later on, we began to set up a new connection, internet connection inside the hospitals. In the future, I think we should invest more in the manpower, invest more in the healthcare system, invest more in the technology to overcome any crisis in the future. At the end, I would like to thank all of you, dear friends, and it would be great welcoming you to visit Palestine. You are all invited invited to attend the first International Palestinian Congress of Radiography in 2022. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive talk and telling us the story about the situation in Palestine, Mr. Abdul Ghani. We will get back to you soon, right after the final speaker for the program today. And the next speaker, we are very happy to have Melissa Pagola from the American Society of Radiologic Technologists. She is the Executive Vice President of Governance and Public Policy. And Melissa will share with us the experience from the USA. Melissa, it's now your time.
Hello, my name is Melissa Pagola, and I am the Executive Vice President of Governance and Public Policy for the American Society of Radiologic Technologists. I am thrilled to be here to present to this distinguished group of professionals on World Radiography Day. If you are not familiar with the ISRRT, it is the largest medical imaging and radiation therapy association in the United States. We have over 157,000 members representing all medical imaging and radiation therapy disciplines and specialties. The United States, we currently have more than 330,000 registered radiologic technologists. COVID-19 has affected every country on Earth. In the United States, we continue to learn about the disease and follow disease control prevention measures outlined in the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention policies and procedures. As of mid-October, COVID-19 cases in the U.S. were declining. In reference to vaccinations, as of mid-October, over 66% of the population received at least one dose, and over 57% of the population was reported to be fully vaccinated. 726,000 people in the United States have died due to COVID-related complications. Like all organizations, ISRRT has learned a lot during this difficult period. Early on in the pandemic, like many healthcare professions, we heard from radiologic technologists who had concerns about securing personal protective equipment. In addition, technologists alerted us about increased workloads and assuming alternative work assignments to assist in managing the COVID-19 caseloads. Alternatively, we heard from many technologists who were laid off or lost their jobs due to the cancellation of elective procedures. Understanding the gravity of the situation, the ISRRT implemented a number of programs and initiatives to support the nation's radiologic technologists. For example, we pivoted immediately and developed the ISRRT COVID-19 Resources webpage, a one-stop shop with information and resources about COVID-19 and how to prevent the spread of the disease. The resources page includes an infection control module worth continuing education credit, COVID-19 essentials courses worth CE credit, free, easy compliance modules and resources, hand washing posters, and details about how to get involved with Project N95. Project N95 is a leading rapid response nonprofit organization created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It helps healthcare providers and frontline workers source PPE from vetted suppliers while driving transparency in the market through procurement best practices. Its mission is to get critical equipment into the hands of frontline workers as quickly as possible. We also included information about the Return to Care Coalition, a group of organizations, including the ISRRT, that educate patients who may have delayed important screens, scans, vaccinations, and treatments as a result of coronavirus fears. The Radiologic technology community appreciated our COVID-19 resources webpage, as tens of thousands of technologists have visited since it launched in March of 2020. We quickly followed the resources page with the ASRT Foundation COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund and awarded over $277,000 in grant support for 563 ASRT members to assist with personal expenses while facing hardships caused by the pandemic. In addition, we also had to address legislative and regulatory issues that affected technologists. We partnered with other radiologic technologist organizations to lobby legislators to ensure RTs were included in HERO, sometimes called hazard pay measures. Unfortunately, some states left out medical imaging and radiation therapy professionals in the definition of frontline healthcare workers. As such, ASRT and its affiliates banded together to lobby lawmakers to make sure that radiologic technologists were included in the legislation and received HERO pay. We also contacted state lawmakers directly to ensure that radiologic technologists were first in line to receive COVID-19 vaccinations. ASRT continues to be a champion that RTs are recognized as essential workers, just as nurses or physicians. Like all nations, the United States is still learning about how to manage this new disease. As I mentioned earlier, the ASRT has developed several educational modules to help technologists limit the spread of the disease and stay protected during medical imaging and radiation therapy procedures. As we learn more, we predict we will develop more COVID-19 educational courses and resources for the nation's medical imaging and radiation therapy professionals. We continue to monitor the COVID-19 pandemic. The health and safety of our members is our number one priority. As such, ASRT encourages its members to take precautions to limit the spread of the disease. Speaking on behalf of the ASRT, our society's goal is to follow the recommendations by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to ensure the safety of our staff, our members, and our patients. In addition, we believe as that we learn more, we will need to provide our members and patients with additional tools and services. The world is full of uncertainties, but I will never doubt the character and determination of the world's radiographers and radiological technologists. I would like to personally thank you, as I know you are committed to providing high quality and safe care to patients around the globe, even during this difficult time. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Melissa, for your comprehensive details of what the American Society of Radiologic Technologists has done during the past year in response to the COVID pandemic. We will get back to you for the Q&A session. And for the next speaker, we are very happy to have our colleague from India, which is Mr. Rajiv Krishnan. He is the National Program Coordinator, ISRRT, and also the Indian Society of Radiographers and Technologists representative from India. And Rajiv Krishnan will share us about the experience with COVID pandemic as the role of the radiographer in a pandemic from India. Rajiv Krishnan, is now your time.
Hi everyone, greetings from Indian Society of Radiographers and Technologists on the occasion of 126th anniversary of X-ray invention and World Radiography Day 2021. Today, the topic of discussion is the role of the radiographer in a pandemic. Let me introduce myself. I am Rajiv Krishnan. I am basically a radiographer, presently working as Head Strategic Business Expansion India and emerging markets, Aramis Imaging LLP, Technopark, Trivandrum, Kerala State. And I am the National Coordinator for Indian College of Radiology Technology, which is the academic division of Indian Society of Radiographers and Technologists. Once again, welcome to the topic, the role of the radiograph in a pandemic. When we discuss the role of a radiographer is a member of the social system and the society. So he has social roles involved. He has professional roles involved, and he has roles as a healthcare professional. So let us analyze one by one. As I told you, radiographer is a member of the healthcare team, and he is also a member of the society. His responsibilities as a general healthcare worker are too many. We can examine some examples here. Spreading awareness of the pandemic, teaching his society and family on preventive measures, how to care not to spread it to anyone else, observing the society around him to have good practices in preventing it, and moreover, pursuing people to get vaccinated on time. These are all his responsibilities as a general healthcare worker. And as a member of the radiology team, he has some different duties involved. The main thing is observing preparedness in the radiology department against the pandemic and ensuring screening of entrance at the hospital lobby as well as the department gate, because these are the two entrances where the infected patients can come in and infect all in the department. So these are the 2 points where screening is needed. Now we are coming to the preventive or disinfection roles, which is the most important things in a pandemic. Let us examine one by one. The most important things comes with your human resources in the department. You have to always ensure the rapid sharing of relevant data and updated communications. Because during pandemic period, a lot of data will be coming in from various sources such as government, other health organizations, your colleagues, and from press also. A lot of data is coming in or pouring in. So you have to select the relevant data and avoid the unnecessary ones. And ensure the available data is accurate and contains useful information also. Otherwise, it will create panic among you and among the public. Another thing you have to observe is confirm that the infection prevention and control knowledge practice are up to date in your department. Depending on the data and the information you are receiving, you have to update the prevention and knowledge practice in your department. According to that, you have to create a cohort plan. What's a cohort plan? Cohort plan is a system of learning depending on you are taking observation, and in the end you are taking inferences. So depending on that references and inferences, you reach a point where how the disease is spreading and what all symptoms are prevailing all such things you can reach. So depending on that, the hospital authorities and your department has to plan a cohort plan. And another most important thing is that you have to learn to manage human emotions during the adversity. Because even though we are healthcare professionals, the psychology of every human being is affected during such adverse periods where you can be infected, your family can be infected, and your colleagues can be infected. And it can create panic in you because of the psychological influence in you. So you have to learn to control your emotions and stay adamant. So these all things will keep your human resource intact with the proper cooperation and coordination in your department. Then another thing a radiology department or radiographer can create is that create hybrid worker systems in your department. That means you can split the available workforce into various functional teams. For example, if you have 20 radiographers there, you can split into 4 and look after the duties each week. This will avoid cross infections, because if one person is infected, it won't grow into the 20 persons, or it won't affect your work or the functioning of the department. So establish shift systems to avoid cross infections and to split into functionalities. The most important thing is, even if you are doing this, you have to use PPE kits and make sure if enough PPE kits are available for the staff of your department. Another thing you can do is usage of PACS and teleology systems to be maximized, because it can reduce the inference of our interactions between radiologists, so that they can sit at home and report, or they can sit at separate rooms and report, and do not come into the vicinity of infected patients. In that way, you can minimize the infections in your department. Another most important thing you can do is reconfiguring the radiology department. You can split your department into various areas, contaminated areas or rooms, and semi-contaminated areas. And you can create buffer zones in between the contaminated and semi-contaminated areas. And you have to create clear areas also, where non-infected patients are imaged and the non-infected radiographers are working. So these are all precautions to avoid or reduce the severity of infections in your department. Then you can set up emergency management and infection control teams with the aid of hospital management. The coordination between the hospital management and planning of infection control and radiology departments is a must. And collection of the most up-to-date protection related information to educate and train staff in the department is also essential during the COVID time, because in each phase of the COVID, the protocols can change. So every staff should be aware of what all protocols have been replaced and what all new protocols are coming. And reallocation of staff according to the actual situation is also necessary, because beyond your control, more people can get infected and go on leave, so that you have to adjust the duties among the available staff. And another thing is that you have to take continuous CTs of infected patients with COVID. So establishing CT procedures for patients with COVID-19 is an important aspect of any radiology department. And the establishment of an emergency management plan for the radiology department to ensure that the departments would run normally, considering all these aspects. Then there is the general disinfection procedures, which will be conducted in all hospital departments and including radiology department. The surface disinfection is very much necessary. Another most important thing regarding radiology department is the equipment disinfection. After each COVID suspected case, you have to clean and disinfect the equipment. And you also have to wipe the ground using disinfectant liquids. And you also you have to use air sprays to have air disinfections. You have to control the AC temperature whenever necessary also. So these are some general disinfection procedures carried out in hospital as well as radiology departments. Then the most important preventive measure is using personal protective equipment, PPE, for each radiographer. It includes several gears, including shoes or shoe covers, medical protective clothing, head caps are used, N95 masks are a must, and you have to use goggles and face shield whenever occurred, and also you have to use gloves. So these all things constitute a PPE kit. Now we come to the medical imaging roles of a radiographer. One of the main workhorse was mobile radiography during this COVID season, as you know, because it's very much valuable in COVID situations as it reduces chances of cross infections, and it is very useful in radiographing infected patients admitted in isolation wards or in ICUs. And this machine has to be disinfected after going to each patient or each rooms, but it reduces the transportation of the patients, and also it's very much helpful in X-raying ICU-ridden patients. So this mobile radiography was very much useful during the COVID season. Another important investigation is routine chest X-rays and HRCTs. These are important tools to assess the complications and detection of lung-related escalations of COVID. Early chest X-rays can help identifying the infection in early stages. And in many countries, screening was done along with the RT-PCR and chest X-rays at homes or at small clinics for initial screening. Another important examination was HRCT lung, which helps in the detection of severity or complications like pulmonary embolism in post-COVID patients or with the severe COVID. So these were the most important examination related to radiology departments during the COVID. And the conclusion is that the role of the radiographer in the pandemic was very versatile. They served as responsible citizens of each country, took care of everyone around them as a healthcare professional, and given their service as a diagnostic personnel in defining complications of the pandemic. A large number of them got infected. Many of them lost lives and a number of them are still suffering from post-COVID complications. Let us salute those who lost their lives during this COVID season. And for the mankind, a new dawn has appeared in the horizon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajiv Krishnan, for your contribution about the experience from India. We will get back to you during the Q&A session. And we have the last speaker for today, and he is Ephraim Tembo. He is the radiographer from Malawi. Mr. Tembo will share with us his experience from his country. Now is your time.
Hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure presenting today the World Radiography Day, as we are celebrating the discovery of the X-ray, and it has played a very vital role in diagnostic, follow-up, as well as management of COVID-19. The title this year is The Role of the Radiographers in Pandemic. I'm Ephraim Tembo, a diagnostic and a therapeutic radiographer, working at a major referral hospital in Malawi, Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital. The presentation outline, I'll give an overview of Malawi, current situation on COVID-19, overview of radiology in Malawi, lessons from COVID-19, as well as the potential future direction. Malawi is a landlocked country with a surface area of 118,484 kilometers, of which 94,276 kilometers is land. Administratively, it's divided into 4 regions: northern, central, eastern, and southern region. The economy is predominantly agro-based, agriculture, forest, fishing, contributing to 28% of the GDP. As of 2021, population of Malawi is over 18 million, of which 84% of population live in the rural area, as compared to 16% in the urban centers. So in terms of health, high quality services are being offered in urban, and the low quality services in the rural areas. So as radiology follow the same, radiology services are being offered in the urban, and there are no radiology services in the rural area. Malawi registered the first COVID case on 2nd April 2020, and Malawi was relatively being spared from the first wave. However, after being spared from the first wave, Malawi was being hit hard with the second wave, third wave, and as you can see from the Minister of Health dashboard, on 11th January 2011, we had 452 new cases. And by then, the total death was 235, and the new death 10. And on 30 July 2020, we had more cases, about 668 new cases. And the total death by then, it was 1,614 and 26 new cases. But as of October, we have been experiencing a reduce in COVID cases. We had only 4 new cases and 2 new deaths. So as of 2020, Malawi, we had only 96 radiography technicians, 9 radiation therapists, 30 radiographers, 1 sonographers, and 1 radiologist working in a public institution. And also 71 radiology staff, that's from the mission hospitals as well as the private facility. So you can see that there's a real shortage of the staff in Malawi. If you see 1 radiologist against the population of over 18 million as of now, and overall as the country, as of now, the total number of radiographers is not more than 300. So, as a nation, Malawi, we're being taken by surprise with COVID-19, especially in the second wave, as we were being spared in the first wave. Radiographers being involved in setting up the isolation wards, and like in our facility, we have 1 mobile X-ray. The same to be used in the isolation ward, as well as for emergency in the ICU and theater. So it's quite hard having 1 mobile unit in a major referral like Malawi. So as the pandemic unfolded, we experienced an increase in workload and procedure time, despite suspending some of the routine examination, but X-raying a COVID patient, it requires a radiographer to put on personnel protective equipment, as well as to disinfect the equipment. So it's taking time. So we experience really an increase in workload. Radiology services are a crossroads of heterogeneous subject within the hospital, especially like in our setup. We receive patients from the surgical, medical, ENT, and eye department. Therefore, measures has be taken to mitigate the risk of the staff being infected and other staff from other departments, as well as the public and the patient. So what we were experiencing is the shortage of personnel protective equipment, lack of training in infection control measures. As I've already stated, limited resource like mobile equipment. We have only 1 mobile X-ray unit for the like when the COVID was at peak. We had 5 isolation wards using only 1 mobile X-ray, as well as in other emergency was not enough. And then overall, as the country, we have 2 CT function machine in the government. Had it been that we have more CT scan, we can dedicated 1 for COVID-19, but we only have 2, which is not enough. And also mental illness, the well-being. We are psychologically affected for the first time in the COVID ward. You think about yourself, am I gonna be infected? And you also think about your relative. So really we are psychologically in mental health illness during the pandemic when it was at a peak. Potential future direction, way forward, development and implementation of training program that are based on staff law on emergencies, develop protocols to provide staff with training on emergencies, and also provide staff with social and psychological support. And for the academic, the student need to undergo the disasters training so that they can be equipped with skills and knowledge because they can play a vital role in management of COVID-19. Mechanism and system must be put in place before the next wave to ensure that all radiology staff are prepared and ready. And we need also to have a clear infection prevention control radiology policies that will help to guide us, especially as a radiology department. In conclusion, there are significant challenges globally in delivering medical imaging services. As the fights will continue on going part of COVID-19, quality and safety of care become more important. There are dramatic implications associated with suboptimal radiology practices and services delivery. Collaborative effort of all radiology staff, we can assure provision of high quality and safe medical imaging services to safeguard the health of the public, our fellow staff, and patients. So this is the team from a major referral hospital, Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the speakers. What have you contributed and telling us the story from your country are very valuable to our colleagues from across the world. Now we have Donna Newman, our president, is here. Donna, you want to have a word to the speakers and to all the radiographers and technologists all around the world?
Well, before we begin our panel discussion, I just want to say Happy World Radiography Day to all of our members around the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening for you. And I want to tell you that as our members celebrate in their countries, the ISRRT actually wants to honor you and your members. And we want to tell you that what you do every day matters. You play a vital role during this pandemic. And we thank you for what you do every day for our patients. I also want to take a moment to honor our members that lost their lives during this pandemic. Our thoughts and prayers are with their family and friends. And we also want to be sure to honor them today for giving their life as frontline healthcare workers. And I just want to note that it was so interesting to me to hear our member experts around the world discuss the role of the radiographer in their country during the pandemic. And I see that there is still work to be done. And I'm so pleased to have these member experts on this panel discussion because you are the heart of our profession, and sharing best practices and knowledge around the world is key to having success during this pandemic. And so I was so pleased to hear your experts from all your countries, and I look forward to our discussion during the panel. I'll turn it back over to you, Napa.
Thank you, Donna, and happy World Radiography Day to you too. This is a special day to us. Actually, we have 3 speakers that join us for the live session today. And thank you so much again for joining us to this program. I just wonder if anyone of us from home, you have any questions to our speakers, please do so on the chat box. It's going to be underneath the platform, the Facebook Live, or it will be on the right-hand side, depending on the platform that you log on. First of all, I would like to just ask Melissa from USA, it's quite interesting the way that the ISRRT put forward all the resources to the radiographer. it's very impressive, and you have done it on time. And it's a good example because when we look back to the year 2019, when the pandemic just started, we struggled a lot, especially in my country. We didn't really know what to do. And of course, at that time, we team up together with our international colleagues and come up with the standards like that. I would like you to elaborate a little bit about what have you done in the US for the technologists over there.
Yes. So with the technologists in the U.S., we saw, as in everywhere, it was quite a turbulent time. And the technologists were dealing with changes in role. Many lost their jobs because elective procedures were canceled. Many had to figure out how to do more. They had to learn to do things like screening patients and take on roles separate from what their traditional radiography role was. And we knew that we needed to make sure they had resources to protect themselves and protect their patients. And so that's why we very quickly created that resource page. And as I mentioned, that resource page had education modules to help them protect themselves, protect their patients, hand washing posters. The other thing that it had, as I mentioned, was the opportunity to be able to submit an application for grants, because we knew many of them were struggling financially. One of the things I didn't mention, which I think is so important, as radiographers and radiologic technologists around the world are working to help patients in a critical way, oftentimes they struggled. It's very difficult for us as radiographers. So we even had resources to help them personally through dealing with the stress of that. And we felt that web page as a resource was probably the quickest and easiest way to get that out to radiologic technologists.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. And I move the same question to India, Rajiv. Please unmute your microphone. We also would like to learn about your association, the Indian Society of Radiographers and Technologists. What have you done for your members and also the radiographers in India?
Thank you, Pugna. Indian Society of Radiographers and Technologists is comparatively a new generation organization which started 10 years back. But in the last 10 years, we could do a lot for the radiologic community of India. We have started from the southern end of India. As you know, you have come to Kerala, which is the southernmost state of Kerala. We started from Kerala and grew up to all 28 states in India, and we have now handling around 30 academic clubs in the main cities of India, as well as our state chapters. So it has been a thorough success for the last 10 years, and that's why we got admitted into ISRRT, I think. Thank you.
All right. And interesting thing that we heard from our colleague from Malawi is that it's a big challenge, I believe, Ms. Tembo. Would you elaborate a bit about the education and training in your country, what you lack of? And then when it's time for the COVID pandemic, look at the number of radiographers in your country. It's a huge challenge that you are facing with. I have no idea if we could handle the same situation back home. Would you elaborate a little bit about the activities that you have done in your hospital and also throughout your country in response to this pandemic, Mr. Tembo? Are you with us?
Hello, I'm just joining now. I was experiencing a power interruption. Yeah, so you can come again.
Oh, yeah. We listened to your talk. It's very impressive, and see how you struggle in your country. You have a very, very limited number of radiographers and also radiologists. But for our profession as radiographers, during the pandemic, what have you done to face with this struggle? And also, if anyone helping you to like dealing with different problems that you have, especially the manpower, the protective equipment, and things like that. Would you share with us, elaborate more to us so that we see a clear picture of what's really happening to your country?
Okay, thank you very much. as Malawi have already expressed, is a resource-limited country. Radiology started way back, 1940s, but we had the first academic institution starting offering radiology program 1980. Yeah, so just offering diploma. We have graduate with a degree, but it has been outside Malawi. So in general, in total number of radiographers, we have few radiographers across Malawi because of only one institution offering radiology courses. So during the pandemic, the challenge with our country, number one, is about the human resource because of having few radiographers. Because in our setup, the health system is divided into four. The tertiary health system, which is the central hospital, which offered radiology services. So across the country during the pandemic, we were working in shift, but it was not enough because, for example, during the second wave, almost half of the staff, like at a major referral hospital, were being hit by the COVID-19. So we were only remaining with the half. And the total number of the population, the total number of the patients that we see during the day is more than 200 at a major referral hospital. So that's problem number one. Number two is about mobile equipment, X-ray equipment. Like in our setup, we have only one mobile equipment. And when the pandemic was at a peak, we had 5 isolation wards. Using one mobile equipment, it was not enough because all these isolation wards are very far from the main radiology department. So these are the challenges that we experience, human resource as well as equipment and lack of personnel protective equipment. The problem is that it's only this time, last time is when the Minister of Health developed the national radiology policies. And for so long we have been practicing radiology services without having radiation monitoring services. It started in 2018. So in our setup, radiology is developing. In short, is what I can share about Malawi status.
All right, thank you. And what about vaccination? Have you got it on time?
Yes, we started receiving the vaccine some earlier this year. And as of now, the total number of the people who have been vaccinated, a full vaccination, there are over 700,000. Others, they have just received the first jab. They are waiting for the second jab. So we are not even more than 1 million yet. But there's a political will. The government is processing buying the vaccine so that more people should get the vaccine.
All right, thank you. And Donna, you have any comments or anything?
I do. I actually want to, I find it very interesting because we're in the middle of a pandemic and we are having shortages among our health professionals because of the pandemic. A healthcare worker shortage anyways, as the WHO has said, 18 million healthcare worker shortage by 2030. And how do we counter this? How do we get enough people in our field to actually take care of our patients for the future of our field and still work through the pandemic without lowering standards? I think that these experts on our panel could give us some good ideas. And I think that we have to look to the future on how we can do this without lowering our standards. So I would be very interested to hear from our countries around the world how they would see our profession moving with our standards to expand, to keep our standards the same. How do we counter the pandemic and still fill the gap in the healthcare worker shortage that's been happening all over the world over the last year or so and projected to be worse in the next coming years? I'd be interested to hear from what our panels say about that, Napa.
Oh yeah, maybe we start with Melissa. What's your opinion about this?
Yes. So in the United States, we don't have a shortage, but we did have issues during the height of COVID where obviously our students couldn't attend classes. They weren't allowed to go back into clinical. So we sort of had a hiatus where students weren't able to be trained because the hospital sites did not allow them to go in. Most of our programs in the United States are back up and running. Some of them may still have some hybrid online classes, but the clinical sites, for the most part, are back open. I think it's a difficult question, Donna. It depends on the resources of the country and the extent of the the amount of technologists and training programs that are available. But from the United States perspective, I think we're very fortunate that we have the programs that we have, and we feel very fortunate and very lucky to have the resources that we have. I'm very interested to hear from the other panelists because we too want to learn from you because we know we can't expect to always have the resources that we have. So I'm very interested to hear from the other panelists as well.
Thank you, Melissa. I think it's good to go back to India, Mr. Rajiv Krishnan, because your country is a very big country with 1 billion population. And what is the situation of the manpower and education training for radiographers over there? Please unmute your microphone.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Napa. It has been a very relevant question because our country is the second biggest populous country in the world with around 1330 million people. That means more than 1,300 million people in the world. And there is surely a shortage of all healthcare professionals there. At the same time, in certain parts of the country, lot of uncertified courses are being running that we have been found out just to compensate this among the healthcare professionals. But now there's a new move from the government. The government has formed a new Allied Health Professionals Council in India, which is the largest one in the world with 53 practicing professions. So radiographers also will be included into this council. And the registration will be started very soon. And I think after that 1 year, we will be having a clear picture of how much registered radiographers will be there in the country. Then only we are able to say how much is the gap from the present situation and the required situation. So we have been working on this for last 3 to 5 years. Our ISRRT, our professional organization is also working behind this thing, and we are doing a lot of continuing professional development programs across the country, even for the non-qualified technologists who is practicing. So that was our contribution for the last several years, and now it has been going to be an authorized one, so that we will still continue to work in the direction of improving the standards of radiographers in our country. Thank you very much.
That's good to hear that we all of us working hard to promote the standard of our profession. We already heard this from Malawi already. And Yutapan, would you like to share something from Thailand since you are here? Please unmute your microphone. All right, Yutapon, thank you. And I would like to add on top of that, Thailand, even we are upper middle income country, we still lack of radiographers because the population of 70 million, like Thailand, we only have 5,500 registered technologists. It's never enough because like we have the problem with the not with the standard of education and training. We are quite well established, but the thing is to produce the technologists, there are a lot of regulation, like from the Ministry of Education. One teacher can only take care of 8 students. You may think this is ridiculous. Like if you need to have one batch of radiography student of 100, how many teachers you need? That's a challenge. Even I have been serving as the president of the radiography board for 4 years. We've been fighting and never success. So what we have done was that we open up new school, and now we can only produce about 500 radiographers a year, and never enough. And data from last year in our Ministry of Health, the hospital, there are a total of 196 hospitals without radiographer, and that's tough here. But for the service that we have, it's quite standard, I believe. But the point is we do not have enough manpower at the moment. And during the pandemic, we got hit hard. Like when we got vaccination quite early, but the vaccination type that we got was inactivated virus type. And when the Delta variant come in, it did not protect us. And then we get infected. And when the technologists get infected, the department was closed down. Now comes the problem. I got a phone call from the ministry all the time during past year to find a solution we even have to train people in the hospital to do basic x-rays because we have no choice when radiographer got into the quarantine after we get infected. That's a story that we have.
Now, it would be interesting to hear from Dimitris, our CEO. He's working on a subcommittee with Teriel, and they're kind of have done some research around the world talking about figuring out about the shortage and very interesting results that they have. And possibly he could share just a snippet of that information just to know for our members around the world that we are actually working on this. We know there's been a shortage due to the pandemic, but there's actually a shortage of radiographers around the world. Dimitris, maybe you would share 2-3 minutes of some of the information you guys have found out as you research that for us.
Yeah, actually, we had submitted to the WHO project because WHO, as you may know, is at a big concern that there will be healthcare staff shortages up to the year 2030. They say there will be a shortage of some millions of healthcare workers. Interestingly enough, the well-developed, financially developed world, they don't want to enter to the healthcare sector because people, they might want to have better other jobs, well-paid, and having not workload during the weekends and public holidays and night shifts. And the underdevelopment world wants to have jobs to the healthcare sector because they want to offer probably more to their society, and they are able or they are willing to sacrifice their personal time and to help humanity. Having said that and having this in our mind, we in the ISRRT have questioned ourselves what's happening in our profession. Do we have to face shortages at the radiographers in future, or we have enough situation around the world? Many societies have responded back to us, giving an outline of the profession and an outline of the interests of students and radiographers, and we are under the final process of the data, and I'm sure that within next week we will be able to share all this final information with you all and with the WHO. But what we discover is that the well-developed world doesn't have enough radiographers, and the underdeveloped world wants to offer more healthcare staff to enter to this healthcare sector.
Interestingly enough, I think it would be interesting to hear from our panelists, from the WHO's point of view, we are countering the pandemic with shortages of people getting sick from the pandemic, but still they're asking us, what innovative ways can we counter this? We have different laws in our countries all around the world for education. Can distance learning be incorporated at all, from well-developed courses to be used in underdeveloped courses? I'd be interested to hear from our panelists if they believe that there's a role there for some kind of education. I know this Facebook Live has been successful, but to really get the workforce needed with such a technical field, how do we counter that and help all of our member countries around the world to meet the shortage that's happening, coinciding with the pandemic? You know, with the pandemic happening, we already are losing staff members that are getting it and not having enough staff. You can't provide healthcare services. So it would be interesting to hear what our panelists think about opportunities to share resources of online, if there's a role for that in education or not. Go ahead, Napa. You can go through the list of them.
All right, let's start with Melissa then.
Yeah, Donna, I think you bring up a great point. In this time, many programs had to put their traditional didactic education online. So particularly in the United States, where many programs were face-to-face, the actual classroom portion has been created as something that can be delivered virtually. So I think it's a great question. How can we partner, understanding there will be language differences, there will be cultural differences. So how do we work together to take some of at least the basics of the radiographer and radiological technologist education and possibly partner? I'm a past educator in the United States, and I'm sure there are programs that would love to work with other countries around the world, maybe to try to create that type of virtual education.
That's great to hear. And the good news is the ISRRT is looking for setting up the education wing of the society. And this will be a very great resource that we can reach out to you. And I think we kind of run out of time for tonight. It's like 1.5 hours already. And I think we have Donna Newman to close the program.
Well, I just want to say happy World Radiography Day one more time. And I really, truly want to thank our member experts. Without you, our society will not be successful. And the sharing of best practice and the sharing what's happening in your country is really a benefit to all our radiographers around the world. So thank you for taking time to join in and listen and learn from our member experts around the world. And thank you to our speakers for taking time to share what's happening in your country. You guys make a difference to our patients every day, and the work you do matters. So thank you all for joining us for this Facebook Live, and I look forward to seeing you all on our next session. Thank you, and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening.
All right. Thank you, Donna, and goodbye. See you next episode. Bye.
Speakers, stay on. Speakers, stay on.
Thank you.